like it. Gotta relax.
This is Earth Radio. And now here's human music.
Human music. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Gotta relax.
This is Earth Radio. And now here's human music.
Human music. I like it. I like it. I like it. Gotta relax.
This is Earth Radio. And now here's human music.
Human music. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Gotta relax.
This is Earth Radio. And now here's human music.
Human music. I like it.
Hello, ladies and gentlefish. We are back. We are here once again. It is Wednesday. We're doing art things, and we are drawing our sexy mushrooms. So, last session, we finished off this mushroom, which I had done partially off stream. And then sort of cleaned up and added sort of our shadow shading and our shadow and our tone, and then put in some of our sort of texture pieces and things like that and put in the background. I think this turned out really well. I really like this one. We, prior to that point, had finished off this lovely morel, and then this was the first one we did. I really like the kind of wispy, almost cartoony, watercolor-esque. Yes, I do need to do that. Apologies.
Oh, there's a memory. Otherwise I know you'll forget.
I will forget.
Yeah.
That's Lizzie Bell there in the background. She's getting ready to go to work. So we did those, and then we started on this one, which we have not finished yet, which is supposed to be a bridal veil stinkhorn mushroom. But I'm not sure that I like the veils, because they're doing a pretty good job of hiding all this detail underneath here. So I think potentially I have maybe veiled too much. Because we've lost a lot of this detail. So I think what we're going to do is go in and reveil, basically redraw in these things, but leave much larger gaps. And then we'll do a comparison of basically what it looks like without, what it looks like with, and then what it looks like with the new one that's sort of lesser, and see if it still gives the same sort of feel that we're going for. I think we're going to go in and clean up some of these lines anyway, so we might do that first, just because that kind of makes more sense. But yeah, so that's the plan for today. After we've done that, we have a couple more of these ideas. So we have this one, which is this kind of like skirted. I was going to do like some clothes, but using the textures of the mushroom to sort of emulate clothing, as this kind of slightly more interesting idea that I had playing with this one. So you see the kind of like texture becoming skirting almost. I figured we could play into that idea even more and have this whole sort of outfit. The other options we've done this one already, which was this lovely lady. Then we had this is our Stinkhorn here. Then we had our Morel, which is this lovely guy. Don't know about maybe fixing that one up. And then this is the last one that we had planned, which was this kind of slightly more risque, with two lovely mushroom gentlemen. So this was the last one we had planned to do. But now we've got another one as well that we could potentially do as well. So I don't know what the plan is. We might go with this one first, or we might go with the mushroom lads. But basically the plan is for these to be Valentine's Day prints. So if people are keen to get in on some of that, do let us know. I'm just gonna take some of this back a little. And then we're going to blur it. Just a tad. Let's see how that looks. That's not too bad. Yeah, but we're gonna try and fix up this frontal layer. So we'll start here. I'll just go in and clean some things up, and then we're gonna try and redo some of this. So. Please do let me know how you're doing out there in StreamWorld. What is happening out your way? If you are having a good time, being happy. If not, do let us know. And we'll see what we can do to assist. Yeah, I think this needs cleaning up a little, and then maybe potentially having some more blending done to it. It's already pretty like wispy, and it's starting not quite to match the hard line image that I've got underneath it. But I would like to be able to see some more of the definition underneath. That's sort of the more important thing here for me. So if we're struggling to see that, I'd rather get rid of most of this. But I liked the idea of this like big veil that covers the whole body kind of thing, because that's sort of how the mushroom works. The other option is we just have it literally as like an actual bride's veil, and have it only cover like just the top of the head. That's another reasonable solution to this. but we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it works out once we clean this up a little. Maybe that will solve the problem, because there's a lot in here that otherwise might not need to be. We were watching the secret premiere of Vox Machina, the Legend of Vox Machina special, which is very exciting. We enjoyed it. It was only the first 2 episodes, which I was a little bummed about, but you know, can't expect it all. And we only have to wait until the 28th for the rest of them to, well, the next 3 to come out. So that'll be the first 3 episodes. So we get 1 more then, and then a week after that or 2 weeks after that we get 3 more episodes, and then 3 more after that. I'll have to check what the scheduling like, whether or not it's 2 weeks or 1 week. I think it might be 1 week. But yes, if you're a fan of Critical Role, you probably already know all about it. But you should definitely go and check it out. If you're not, and you're just a fan of like D&D and stuff, definitely go and check it out. It's definitely not for kids. It's definitely the ridiculous humor that D&D entails, and it stays pretty faithful to the series. It's obviously not as in-depth in the mechanics of things, because it's sort of trying to tell the story as opposed to sort of show off the actual game. But it's a fun retelling of it, and it's definitely keeping to both the idea of it, and then also there's a lot of like actual lines from the live streams, which is pretty awesome. I was enjoying it. I thought it was good. Lizzie Bell enjoyed it as well. She thought it was entertaining. She has not watched, I don't think, any of the original Critical Role. She's watched some of the second season with me.
It's just so much of it.
But there is just so much of it. And there's like, part of the problem with it as well is it's 4 hours each time of some pretty in-depth content that you kind of have to pay attention to all of that. And you can do it in chunks and like go away and come back to it.
Makes it take even longer.
But that just makes it take longer. And they can kind of get bogged down in things at times, which, you know, can make watching the series a little harder at times, because if you're not super into, you know, D&D or storytelling or whatever, you might get a little lost in the weeds of things. I really enjoy the first season, mainly because that's when I went in. That's when I first got into it, and I've watched it the whole way through. But I think the second season for a newcomer is probably a little more palatable. Basically, for those who don't know, Critical Role is it's a group of voice actors who get together and play Dungeons and Dragons. They do it on Twitch every Thursday, most Thursdays, and they are playing in a homebrew realm, a homebrew universe, and they have this sort of long-running story arc that goes across ages. They're not the best D&D plays ever, but they do pretty well, and they've been doing it long enough now that they've gotten a good handle of it. Back in the day, because they started just playing for fun in their home, and then turned it into a show, they didn't have the best handle of A, how the show was going to go, and B, sort of the way the mechanics of the game should be handled and things like that. There are aspects of playing D&D that don't really lend themselves to sort of being filmed, really. And at the start of things, they didn't have a great handle on how that should be. They got significantly better at it over time, and within the first season, they do really well. They get really, really good at it really quick. But because you have to struggle through the first few episodes, and remember they're 4 hours, 3.5 hours each for each episode, by the time you're getting to like the 10th episode, that's a significant investment in hours, and they're still not quite... They haven't quite ironed out all the bugs by that point. So you can be watching for a fairly significant amount of time, being frustrated about like pretty simple things that they should have fixed early on. But if you can put up with that, it's worth it. And if you're already invested in the characters and the people, the voice actors themselves, and then the characters they play, you would be able to put up with that significantly easier. So if you came into it with the second season, which you do not need to know anything about the first season to watch, there's some Easter eggs you'll miss, but like not a whole lot, and they're things you'll pick up along the way. I think you'll probably have an easier time of getting into it. Because things run much smoother, and the characters are a little bit more refined and developed, and they made some considerations about characters that they sort of otherwise didn't in the last one.
Hello, stream. Goodbye, stream.
You're the best.
You're the best. You're the love.
Sorry for interrupting your stream.
No, that's fine. But yeah, the show, the animated show that they've just finished making and brought out, it's pretty good. I would recommend checking it out. It's going to be on Amazon Prime, so if you have Prime, check it out. If you don't, I'm sure you can find someone who does, or alternatively, there are other means of watching things.
Never suggest that.
Well, just so that we're all aware, the show itself was kickstarted, so the audience who's watching it has already paid for it. So any money now is actually going to Amazon, and I don't really support that, so... But I would never suggest you would pirate it. But yeah, like all the studios and the animators and stuff have already been paid, and yes, there are some royalties that come afterwards, but they would be significantly less than what was already originally given, which was, I think it was like $10 million or something. I myself contributed to the making of this series. Yeah. And if it's not your cup of tea, like that's fine. I just like it, so I thought I would give a glowing endorsement to something that I enjoy, that I think other people would enjoy.
It has been the influence for a lot of people getting into D&D, much to the point of actually causing some conflict in the nerdiverse. Lots of nerds out there being very unhappy about the Matt Mercer effect, which kind of just sounds to me like people not communicating properly. So for those who don't know, Matt Mercer is the dungeon master for Critical Role. He is himself a very noted voice actor, because they all are. That's sort of the whole deal with the show. Basically, they all got together because they're friends, because they know each other from voice acting. That's the thing. They were playing before it was a TV show. The intention to monetize it wasn't until significantly later, but they had planned on it just being a way to share the thing they loved, to share the game that they enjoyed playing. That was sort of the whole idea behind it. The money-making exercise with Geek and Sundry and Twitch sort of came later on. That has been one of the big complaints about Critical Role. I can't talk tonight. I'm a little tired, and I think that might be it. But we'll push through. We'll see how we go. I'll have a bit of water. That might help. I know I say a lot. I'm sorry. I do have a vocal cadence, I guess, is the structure to my words and my thinking, my thought patterns. So we usually go back and forth between them. Like most people, I have thinking words. Anyway, back to the original point. Matt Mercer. So he is the dungeon master, and lots of people have complained because he, being a voice actor, puts a lot of effort into voicing his characters differently. Not all of them, but quite a lot of them, and putting a lot of effort and personality into his games. He, has a fuck ton of minis. He builds sets. He has an expansive homebrew world that he develops. He has these huge story arcs that span hours and hours and hours and hours and hours worth of content. The first season is 400 plus hours long. It's 100 episodes of 4 hours each. The second is the same. Second season is 100 and... I think the first one's 104 and the second one's 102 episodes long, and they're all between 3.5 and 5 or 6 hours, depending on. On average, it's about 4 hours, just north of 4 hours for each episode, on average. So it's a lot of content, and it's a lot of things to keep track of, and it's a lot of doing stuff. But that's not his only job, but it's a significant portion of his job now. He gets paid to do it, gets paid a decent amount of money to do it, but he does it because he loves it. And that's the important bit. He was already doing that much. He was putting in that much effort prior to that point. And he has a skill set that allows him to do that, and he has a job that allows him to do that. But he was already doing it. So it was just something that he as a DM was doing, and then they filmed it, and, etc., etc. Now there's players who are coming into sort of the nerd realms, and hoping to play D&D for the first time after having watched Critical Role. They come into it having only experienced D&D via Critical Role, and so they expect, or they think, that the DMing style of Matt Mercer is the way that it's done. Or they think that that's the better way to do it. That they enjoyed that, so clearly that's the superior way, essentially. I have problems with that line of thinking, but I have problems with that line of thinking for all the people. The counterpoint to that point being that there are people in the established D&D community who have been playing for 20, 30 years who have never changed their playstyle from the original one that they picked up and started playing with originally. From, some backstore community hub. And they picked up a style of play and they thought that was how it's done, and because they've done it for that way for 20 plus years or whatever, that's how it should always be, no matter who's playing at the table, and no matter what the story is. There are people who absolutely think that way. To the point of some people being like, girls aren't allowed at my table, or, certain races can never be played at my table, certain classes can't be played at my table, XYZ. Those kinds of ridiculous things. And they are ridiculous. I think expecting someone to be as good as Matt Mercer in all of the things, given that they are not themselves a voice actor, they're not, an expert at playing the game, they haven't been playing the game for very long, like, you can't expect such a high level of skill in an area that you yourself don't have the skills in. So I think that's sort of an unfair thing already, which is kind of what the Matt Mercer effect is. That's what people are saying. But the issue I have with that idea is that it essentially means that someone has sat down at your table, you being the GM, or any of the other players. They've sat down there at your table, and you've not explained to them the type of game you're running, the type of thing that they should expect to see in your game, how certain mechanics work, how certain things are going to be handled, certain subject matter, certain just like simple things, what to do when there's conflict, what to do when there's a scene you don't like, what to do when a situation doesn't go your way, what to do when you're unhappy with a character, player or NPC. All of these things are important things to talk to your players about, and it's called a session zero. That's what sort of that conversation is. It's prior to the game beginning, you say to your players, look, this is how I run my games, or how I want to run my games. Do you agree with that as a thing? Is there anything you would like to change specifically? Is anything in here a deal breaker for you? And if it is, and if it is and I need to have it and it's a deal breaker for me, then, we can't play together. Or alternatively, how many people at the table feel this way? Let's change this one thing so that everybody's more comfortable. That is a reasonable position to take. But there are lots of people who don't do that, which is fucking ridiculous. I see what the one of the potential issues is here. Let's just zoom out and see. That's a little better. I'm liking that a little better. That doesn't take away too much. The extra shading takes away a bit of the detail. We might just, here's what we're going to do. We're going to erase some of this a little bit. Let's turn the hardness all the way up. Try that again.
just using my mouse at the moment. Let's just clean this edge slightly. There we go. How's that? That's a little better. Mild change. Perfect. That's what we wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested and keen, Instagram. There is my Instagram. Here is the Discord. If you would like to check out the Discord, chat to us, have a drink with us. It is a group Discord with lots of different people on there, so just be aware of that. Because you know, there's going to be other things going on there that isn't just me and my art channel. I'll do my very best to moderate things on there, so there's nothing bad, untoward, etc. But also keep in mind that it is not just my things, so there is going to be other content from other people, and I can't instantly moderate all of it. So it is sort of an 18+ Discord, and then also to keep in mind that that other people will be using it for their own things. So it won't just be my art stuff on my games. It'll also be the other streamers on there. Feel free to add your own art in there as long as it is, let's say, appropriate. Use your discretion in that. But I think most people on here would understand what that means. If you don't, feel free to ask me. Yeah, a mild blur is good. Is good. Yeah? Yeah. All right. I think we need to clean up some of the edges in here. Just because on close view it's quite messy. And the intention is for these to be prints for Valentine's Day, so probably not just Valentine's Day. They will be things for afterwards as well. But I would sort of like most of this to be fixed up and cleaned up for Valentine's Day, so that we can get them out there. Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just cleaning up some of these harder edges where the lines overlap a little unnecessarily. Matte Messer effect, and what was the other thing I was talking about? Oh yeah, session 0. So the session 0 doesn't have to be like hours long or you know, a whole session or whatever. It just a short conversation at the start of, you know, a campaign or whatever that basically says, look, this is how I want to play this game. This is what I expect of you, the players, and this is what you can expect from me as the Dungeon Master. As with most things, consent is key. So if you are not appropriately approaching these sorts of situations and saying, look, you know,
here's the line that I have. Here's the line that I expect you to. This is the boundary that I expect you to honor. And in reverse, what are the things that, like, where are your boundaries? What are the things that you really want to see from this, and what are the things you really don't? And how can we manage those together? How can we make something that sort of mutually fits those 2 points? We're going to get rid of most of this so that we can do the background. Cool. All right, let's fuss with the background for a minute while we continue to chatter away. Yeah, if you're not doing that, if you're not sort of giving people the opportunity to come to you with issues if they have them, and exploring the possibilities of situations that could potentially be harmful or worrying, or whatever the case may be. Some people get funny around this kind of thing and are like, oh, I don't want to coddle my players or whatever. I don't want to limit their actions or whatever, or, shit like that. But then they'll turn around and tell them, you can't do this, you can't do that because I don't want it in my game. Is kind of stupid, for one. What are we listening to? Like Heaven. Turn this up a little. What was I saying? But there is a sort of an expectation of you as the dungeon master to ensure that your players are protected in some sense from, bad things that could happen, either from other players, from you as the dungeon master, propelling the story forward, from themselves, whether that be by painting themselves into a corner due to an experience, or due to sort of a particular expectation about how the game has to be played, or how these sorts of things are supposed to be done. And this is not to say that you should expect or think that you know better, but just to be aware that you hold a particular sort of power within the game that is not sort of evenly spread. And as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And that great responsibility is essentially like, hey, look, I know that certain things are going to happen in this situation, and there are certain things that I'm going to need to do about that. Whether that's asking a player to leave, whether that's mediating between different players trying to do different things, ensuring that, certain content is not in the game. Like, if you've got someone in your party who doesn't deal with depictions of sexual assault very well because they themselves have been through something like that, you're not gonna, or you shouldn't, go out of your way to put that in there, but you also should be careful that, the other players don't accidentally, put that in themselves. Or if you do really need that to be part of the story, I don't know why you would, but if you really, really feel like that should be part of the story, because it's an aspect of it that exists in the world or something like that. Whatever reasoning you have to say that should be a thing. If that's the case, then you need to have you have an obligation to have some aspect or some way or mechanic to say, hey, look, if this is too much, we'll stop, or if this is, getting too close to home, just let us know and we'll do a fade to black type thing. We'll imply rather than explicitly state, which is always a good idea when particularly sexual or violent things are happening. Especially depending on audience, obviously, that's not going to be the case for all people, but recognizing that certain people are not going to handle things particularly well in certain situations is an important thing to consider. Let's put our light back in. Okay, so it's going to be quite a stark difference, so we want to lighten this up even more, I think. Yeah, there we go. We'll just keep adding in our highlight. But yeah, you as the dungeon master sort of have an obligation to make sure that things run smoothly. And that's not to say that you have to be in control of every situation, because that's almost worse. People who try and do that. But that you should be conscious and aware of the things that are happening in your games, and make a conscious effort in that vein to sort of ensure that people... Let's do a little bit more green. Turn the hardness down a little. Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, you should be making a conscious effort to sort of recognize that that not everybody plays the game the same, that not everybody is going to be comfortable with every situation that you come up with, and that is okay, and it should be okay, and it should be sort of admirable to recognize that, and that people are going to be expecting different sorts of things from the game. Some people are going to want to play a game with a lot of combat in it that's sort of very murder heavy. Some people are going to want to play a lot of sort of very intrigue heavy type things, a lot of diplomatic, a lot of, multiple parties versus multiple parties, and you've got to work out who's, on your side or who's in it for what gain, and how you go about managing and maintaining all these different groups and parties and people. Or some people want a particular style or scene of diplomacy. What I mean by that is, some people want A versus B political party. Others want, feudal lords in a fantasy setting. Others really want the intrigue thing of 2 or more parties with, X number of allied or unallied agents moving between them, and the interactions between those parties. Specifically, spy, conflict, where the interactions of parties specifically is around trying to get the other party found out or whatever, or figure out their secrets or whatever, and getting people to work against each other. All of these are just sort of different styles of play, and Dungeons and Dragons, the game that you're playing, is just mechanics. The sort of the story is what determines how these games actually play.
because you can run any of those scenarios using that game, using the mechanics of that game. As you get better at it, you can almost tell the story without any mechanics in a sort of group storytelling endeavor. But the mechanics help that. There is a theorist, a game theorist, sort of a mechanics theorist, who suggests that there's, I think it's 3 different play styles, 3 different play types that need to be reconciled. You're either in it for the narrative, you're in it for the storytelling, you're in it for the what's the specific wording? I think it's like the I think it starts with I, the equalness. I'm gonna have to look this up now. Game mechanics theory, 3 play styles. There's Bartle's taxonomy, which is 4. There's another one. There's another person. Is it GNS? GNS theory. Yes, gamism, narrativism, and simulation. Gamism wants players to win something, but it to be fair. Like, they want to be able to win, but they want the situation to be mediated by the mechanics. So they don't want anybody to have a particularly unfair advantage in a situation, and they want the ability to win any scenario. So a no-win situation for them is in itself a failure of the game. Kobayashi Maru, for example, would be considered to be, by those definition of players, to be a poor game, a poorly made game. Then you have the narrativists. Narrativists. They want the story to be important, so they don't care if you can win or not, as long as the story is compelling. The mechanics of the game are less important. It's the storytelling mechanics that you use, the storytelling devices that you use, and that the story be compelling in and of itself. That's sort of their deal. And then you have the simulationists, and their whole deal is essentially just, we would like the game to be as real as possible. And what they mean by this is, like, if you've ever played any of these sorts of role-playing games, there is a tendency for certain aspects of the game to be hand-waved to a degree, for the sake of brevity in play, and for the sake of, not having to fuss with things that, like, a lot of players don't seem to enjoy all that much. A good example of this would be something like ammunition or food rations, toileting, various things like that, or like carrying capacity for certain things like your money, things like that. A simulationist wants all of that to be taken into consideration, and wants it to be an integral part of the story, that if it's not in the story and it's not explained in some aspect, then it ruins the immersion for them. for someone who is interested in the narrative, for someone who's interested in the game, the first two of those categories, they wouldn't give a shit if, if these things are not actually explained in any level of detail. Their reasoning being that it doesn't matter, when I'm going to the toilet or when I'm eating and how much I'm eating. The important thing is about the killing of the thing, or the story of how I defeated the blah 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 blah. Whereas for someone who is in the simulation argument, if it doesn't matter if you beat the big bad monster, if they can't believe that they were in the world to begin with. Just being in the world and having the world be vibrant and lively is more important to these people than how the game sorts of develops, or how the game is, how the story develops, or how if you win the game or not. Most people are not one of these categories, but are in levels of each of them. Some people will... most people have a threshold of... like a minimum threshold of each of these three categories. It has to be a percentage of each of these three categories, and after that point, one of them then becomes much more important. Let's see how we're looking with this, because I think we're getting close to this being done. It's looking pretty good. I think we need to darken this a little. And we can do that. We can darken this pretty easily. I think that's what we're going to do. But for now, I think we add an extra... That's what this question marks layer will be. No, we'll just put a layer in front of the background layer. New layer. Here. Get rid of these. And the veil back. This is going to be the background shade. And we want just straight black. Opacity down. We're going to turn the size up a little. Hardness 0. Yeah. Maybe a bit more. And the idea is we're just going in and darkening some of these areas just to add a little bit more definition in. Nothing too much, but just playing with our palette a little, just to add in a little extra definition. I'll make this just a little bigger and turn the opacity up slightly. There we go. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Just to differentiate these background layers a little more. Hey. Gamer is Zitty. I'm gonna have to delete this one, because you need to kind of provide some context here. How do I do this without banning you? I'll time you out and then untime you out, I guess.
Oh. Oh. $600 seconds. What's 600 seconds? That's like 10 minutes. Let's go into... I need my like mod view. Nothing in there. Oh, can't see how to do it. Sorry, you're just going to be timed out for a bit. Kind of apologies, but coming into someone's channel and just... or chat, I guess, and just dumping a link is kind of suspicious behavior. So, if you had good intentions, hover around for a bit and then message in the chat. And we can discuss whatever it was that you were trying to show me. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that it was bad and I shouldn't have been trying to look at it. Which is, you know, basically what I did. Anyway. Yeah, so back to discussions of game mechanics, and why we originally got onto this topic. Those different types of mechanics and the different way games are played and maintained is important because not everybody is going to want to play a game exactly the same, and you need to be aware that that's the case because people are going to be coming into your game expecting something in particular. To erase that. There we go, that's a little better. We're going to darken the shading on this one. So we'll take the veil off for a minute. And just working off this layer, just darkening these bits a little. I do like the kind of semi-scratchy thing that we've got going on. I really like in this one when we did the top here, that all worked really, really well. So I'm trying to emulate some of that in here, of this kind of like scratchy, cartoony, watercolory detail. I do think that came across pretty well. Alright, let's check the veil over the top, see how that looks. That's pretty good. I think we want to darken the veil slightly. Now, this is... darken only is the idea. doing? It is. It's doing what I want it to do. Pretty sure that is only... It's not darkening. Oh no, it is. That's annoying. Because what I actually wanted it to do I was hoping that it would I was hoping that it would darken only what we already had there. Yeah, and it hasn't. It's just darkened that whole area. Zoom out, make sure I haven't ruined that. No, that looks all fine. Yeah, okay. I've just put in the darker layer on there anyway, so. Oh well. It looks like we are just going to have to darken it this way. And that's okay, we can do that. That's fine. And I think that's what we're going to do. Pretty good. I think we save two versions. We have this one, the unveiled, and then we have the veiled version. I'm gonna get rid of the back veil and see what that does. It does clean some things up, but I don't think it's perfect in what it's doing. I think what we need to do is go in and clean up some of these bits. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Before we got interrupted. That is not the layer I was supposed to be working on. There is the layer I'm supposed to be working on. Veil back. Perfect. Hey. What was I saying? Something very important, I'm sure. Oh, that's right. The whole sort of mechanic story thing is important to know because there is going to be different people at your table who want to play different sorts of games in different sorts of ways, and their expectation is going to pretty heavily affect how the game runs, because if someone is expecting a particular sort of playstyle and they don't get that, they're going to think that you are a bad GM for not providing that to them, for not providing them that experience. There is also a level of, the player also provides something to this experience, and so it's not entirely the GM's fault, but you should always make clear ahead of time what your gaming style is, what your interest is in that kind of mechanical theory process. How's that looking? Alright, let's just clean up some aspects of this that don't otherwise need to be the way they are. That's fine. That doesn't need to be as big of an issue as it is. That's fine. That's fine. That could go. That could go. That could go. We only need one there. That's fine. That could go. Let's make that a little less full on. That's alright. Yeah. No, that's pretty good. Maybe one of these can go in here. That's a little better. Yeah. And this goes a pretty far way to removing the whole Matt Mercer effect issue, because if your players know what your game style is going to be like, if they know what to expect, and you know what your player's game style is like, and you know what to expect from them, and you know what they're expecting you to provide, then you can kind of meet each other in the middle. And you can also tailor your games a little bit to be a little bit more akin to what they're expecting. You can also steer players away from the trap of expecting certain things that are unrealistic. Most people are not professional voice actors. You're not going to be professionally voice acting every single one of these characters in a different way. I have maybe 4 voices that I use throughout campaigns as a GM, even as a player. And most often, I will just end up saying, when I'm speaking for a character, I'll be like, this character says this to you. They say blah 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 blah, without putting on an accent. Because it's cool if you can put on the accent, but having to remember all the different accents for characters and having that be the cue for players to know this character is speaking actually makes it more difficult for you to bring the world to life. Because having to keep track of what each of those NPCs sound like, especially if you have a vast world that is fairly disparate in the various different things that it has. One of the big problems we come up against, especially in the games that we're playing online, is we have a homebrew world that we play in, and each of the races and some of the areas that exist are modeled after real world languages. So Dwarvish is a form of Icelandic, and
Draconic is supposed to be like Russian-ish. The Druidic languages and Halfling languages are supposed to be like Irish and Gaelic and Scottish Gaelic. They are different things, but essentially the Gaelic languages. So the accents that are supposed to go with those languages are represented for those racial characters or for those areas, those cultural areas. That means if your characters move through those cultural areas, or they're talking to different characters of different races, you're supposed to be changing accents and sort of the voices of these characters. That can be super difficult. It can also be super difficult to remember which characters sound like what. And swapping between those things and not making them all sound either exactly the same or make them all sound sort of unique enough but still the same every time they talk is really difficult. I find it particularly difficult, so I tend not to do it. I try and put on what's called characterizations in voice acting, whereby the tonal qualities of your voice are explained through the personality, like the personality is explained through those tonal qualities. So, for example, someone who is quite meek or mild-spirited might talk more softly, and they might have slow, measured thinking. They might pause between words, almost like they're thinking what they need to say before they're saying it. So that's an aspect of personality that comes out in voice. That is separate and apart from the voice acting side of it, which is the, accents and changes in voice and stuff. You can do the tonal qualities slightly easier, but even that is difficult to remember. Remembering that the character sounds this one particular way is tricky. And having to voice, 5 different characters in a scene can take its toll on a GM. So there are a lot of GMs who don't do it, and totally fine with them who don't. I try and do it occasionally because I think it does add something. But, I just as easily struggle with it, so. But that's one of the things that is this Matt Mercer effect. I use the quotes because I don't think it's a Matt Mercer. I don't think it's his fault. I think it's actually the fault of people who are inexperienced or assumptive. They either come to it without experiencing the breadth of the world, as in players, the people who are playing it, and what their experiences are like. This is looking pretty good. I think this is basically finished. So we'll start on the next one. I think we'll start on this one. Yeah, there's the people who come into it not expecting it to be a dynamic thing with lots of different people doing lots of different things, which is silly. And then there's also the people who have been playing it for a long time and don't listen to their players, don't listen to the people actually coming to play the game with them, what their wants and needs are in this situation, and how they can best respond to that. Why might that be important? Well, because if your players are expecting something and you don't provide it to them, then you've kind of failed in doing the thing. Idea, line up. You don't have to be perfect at it, but you should at least try and give them what they want and teach them, and drop shadow, tone. The line art should be at the top. Why do we have line art and line art 1? One of these is not supposed to be line art. That's why.
this should be tone on top of color. Okay. Okay. This might change around a little. I'm not sure if this is exactly how I want it to be. I was basically just rushing this one, if I'm honest. I had an idea and I wanted to get it down on paper. Anyway, that's been a lot of shitting on people. But how are we going to change these mushies? What do we want these mushies to look like? We'll zoom in a little. There we go. I think we want this top one to be a little bit... let's put this up to 4. We'll erase that. And then lose the size that we had. There we go. And we'll fix as we go. So sort of like this. I think we want it to be a more broad cap. Like that. Even even curling up at the edges might not be a bad thing there. So let's just clean up the top here. The idea was to have this hand up here, so we'll do that. To 4. And we're gonna do a lot of cracks and chunks missing, I think, from this top one. But we'll come back to that, and we're gonna do a sort of one of these, a little bit of Anyway. I'm getting ahead of myself. So then we add in a sort of muscular arm, I think. But yeah, that's sort of my long D&D rant, I guess. I'm a bit of a fanboy for Matt Mercer, so I do have an innate want to try and defend him a little. So if you disagree with anything that I've said thus far, feel free to voice that. But generally speaking, I think, I think those are pretty basic things in the community that like most veteran players and most reasonable players would probably agree with. That like checking with people ahead of time about things is pretty standard practice. Not just expecting people to be amazing at the game straight away is pretty reasonable. talking to people about specifically what you want to get out of the game seems pretty reasonable. What other interesting cap can we do down here? Let's just rub out the stuff above it and see if that helps provide us some context. We'll clean this up a little. We are doing. Why is it down on 2? We are doing our equal opportunity sexiness. So we've done our buff lady, now buff man. We've done our curvaceous lady. We've done our bootylicious lady. We've done our sort of more slender, tall lady. I think we need to do a sort of a more buff lady. That might be a good one. But now we're doing our mix here. A sort of like bear type man. And then we're gonna have like a little Twinkie boy down here. I think is the plan. But I'm not sure I like this lying down this way necessarily. It's not terrible. Just not sure about it. I think we take basically all of this and shunt it that way slightly, like over here, which we can do pretty easily, and I think we will. But for now, let's just finish off the drawing, the fussin'. Where were we? I'm a little all over the place today. But yeah, I think there are aspects of the community that could probably be dealt with in a slightly better way, and there's a lot of complaining about other people's issues and actions when really the fault seems to lie with a fair bit the person who's complaining. In an ideal world, that potentially would be dealt with a little better. A little bit more maturely within the community. But that's a big ask. That's a big ask for nerds. Because we all know nerds aren't the best at the social thing. Being a nerd myself, I can tell you, we're not very good at it. I need a picture of mushroom caps to give me an idea. Mushrooms. Oh, Tia. We could do an interesting, like, oyster thing, I guess. Or like a shaggy boy. I think just like a regular, like a common button mushroom might not be a bad... Yeah, just make it a little button head. That'd be alright. it kind of just the sort of the idea or the joke behind this one was that it was, you know, he was getting some loving, and it just needed to cover the genitalia area. So let's play with that and see how that goes. So we'll erase that to there, to there-ish. This leg. Yeah, that's looking alright. We're going to have to do some texturing on there to get it to work a little, I think. Oh, I might need to go to the toilet at some point. Have a bit of a bio break, because we've been having leftovers, and my stomach doesn't agree with leftovers, which is awful. But I eat them anyway, because they're fucking tasty, and because, you know, it would be a waste otherwise. Which is a ridiculous thing to say given how badly my stomach reacts to them. I think I have IBS. I think that's a problem. But that's something... That's a thing for future me to deal with. And right now me is kind of suffering, but... but I'm gonna put up with it, because yeah. Anyway. I'm talking about shit. Yeah, I'm open and willing to be wrong about things and to have discussions about things. Especially when it comes to like stuff that's not that's sort of not super clear in its delineation. I'm not sure if that's the right wording I want to use, but so like the Matt Mercer thing, if you can show me a pretty good reason as to why the Matt Mercer effect is a thing and why it's bad, and you can provide me some reasonable theory and evidence as to why, I'm more than willing to hear that and to talk that out. But from what I've heard from people who complain about it thus far, it's not the issue they're making it out to be, and it seems more to be an issue with communication between these people that are annoyed about it and new players who don't know what to expect from the game or from the community. These particular people in the community want things to be run a certain way, want things to go a certain way, but they're not explaining that to people who have never been in the community before, never, you know, experienced any of these things. And they're the kind of people who would get annoyed at people who were veterans, who you know, wanted, you know, a more diplomatic gameplay, or they wanted a more, you know, diverse cast of characters or whatever. One of the things that I've seen come up is people complaining about Critical Role causing wokeness in the D&D community. Sort of the wokeness in the D&D community, I think there is something that you can look at in there. There is a development in the D&D world that has... I understand why it's going the way it is, but I have some questions and some queries about it. But I don't think having girls play the game or having female-led anything is a bad idea. Because it actually goes back to some fairly reasonable historical and literary
tropes and ideas. The idea of a female ruler, the idea of a female bar owner or tavern owner, the idea of a female general in an army. These are all like historically accurate things, as well as they are like reasonable storytelling devices, and reasonable things that you would want from your story. But there are shitty incel type people in the community who get shitty about it because, suddenly my game's woke. And it's like, well, no, that's always kind of been there. It hasn't been as much in the stuff that was, brought out by Gygax and Wizards of the Coast early on, and that's shitty. But, like, it's always been in people's games to a degree. And it's definitely been part of history for fucking ever. Because this idea of, man versus women thing is not actually as old as we give it credit for. And that's not to downplay the issues of women. That, there have been fucking horrible treatments and obstacles and stuff that sort of need to be overcome. But the idea that, like, in these ancient societies, women had no say and had no property rights and didn't have jobs and blah blah. That's a more recent development. And it's a shitty thing that gender role idea is shit. And not revering the work of women is bullshit. But it's a newer thing in society, and specifically within Western societies. And there's no reason for that to be replicated in games, because if you're replicating it because you think that's what real life is, or that's what you think it should be, you're a simulationist. You're in the idea that the game should be realistic and it's breaking your immersion. And, that's just a playstyle thing. That's not me criticizing you necessarily. The criticism comes from your view of the world is so backwards and fucked up that you need that to be the case, because it's not the case anywhere else. And if anybody wants to argue with me on that one, feel free, because happy to slap some folk down that think incorrectly. That's not to say that there isn't situations in which, there would be happy stay-at-home mums or whatever, but just that, like, that is not the standard practice or expectation that society should have or does have for women. And if you are trying to push that as an idea, then you are a fool. And my bread-winning wife would very much agree with me. Alright, let's move this over. And do that. We want to do this. And wiggle it over slightly. Anchor it down. Cool, that works. And then we're going to draw and just finish off these legs. Oh, you know what we could do? We could get an extra foot in here. I am still waiting for someone to come on. Oh, hey, so anybody who's watching, if you are watching this on the VOD, if you are watching this on the chat now or whatever, like live, and you are yourself a foot fetishist, or you know someone who's a foot fetishist, please fucking contact me. Please shout out in the chat. Please, there's a suggestion box down below, or PM me, or fucking whatever. I'm fascinated by the concept of foot fetish, because I don't understand it at all. It is so foreign to me as a concept. I can loosely understand some of the idea, but it just I don't know. I just want to hear from someone who is so that I can in my mind collect the thought of what the fuck's going on there. Not at all a judgment on you if you are one. I've met some very weird fetish people before. So you being into feet would be the least of that confusion. I've been in situations that are far more worrying to me than that. I just want to understand on an intellectual level what the fascination is. But even if someone explains it to me, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to understand it, because it's one of the it's just one of, like, oh, I just like it. It's just interesting to me or whatever. I have a feeling that's what it's going to be. And that's fine to a degree. but I still feel like I need to know what it is, what's going on there. But it's I don't want to draw this comparison, but for me, no, I won't draw the comparison because I don't actually believe they're in the same category necessarily. I was gonna say it's like people who are into, scat, poo play, but that's not the case. It's kind of like the furry thing, people who are furries, or pet play, or what else? People who are really into spanking is another one. I understand the spanking on an intellectual level. I don't have a thing for spanking, but I understand the pain pleasure crossover and that idea of like pressure release, where something is painful and then after not being painful for a little bit, or being painful for a little bit, the release of it not being painful anymore is pleasurable, because it's like that contrast idea. And then there's the rush of like endorphins post pain. That cognitively makes sense to me. Why someone would be attracted to that as a thing. The feet thing, I don't understand where it comes from on a cognitive level. Naralina has tried to explain it to us before. I forget what she said, but it's around the idea of like, what was it? They're close to our legs, and there's something about it being in the brain is like really close to something else that's linked to an erogenous zone, and so we link mentally the erogenous zone of the foot to some genitalia or secondary genitalia, secondary sex characteristic thing, and so the sort of the inference being there that I don't want to say crossed wire, because that's not necessarily fair,
But yeah, the concept there being that like someone's is this gonna be? I think this is gonna be our dark. Let's see how we go. A little lighter. A little lighter. We might go quite light for this guy. Like this. And then I think we kind of want like an orangey ready cap on this dude. So we just keep going across and making it slightly more vibrant each time. Yeah, that's a good, interesting spread of colors, I think. Orange cap, maybe some orange highlight throughout, and then this kind of goldy yellow brown, and then this guy's going to be this kind of tan white, this kind of off cream white, and then like shades of grey in the body. Yeah, I don't mind that. I actually think this what we're gonna do is grab just this, because I actually think we want one lot of lighter color than this one. We're gonna go almost completely white. Yeah, I think that's it. Is that, how far away is that from, okay. Maybe we want that then. Just go over this. Oh yeah, that's a little better. Alright, yeah, that's good. That's Gucci, as the kids would say. Oh god. What an awful person. We might do this a little, we might start on the darker end with this one, just because the idea here is going to be a little they're going to be in a dark area. They're doing some dodgy type things. We're going to go up in and clean up most of this. We're going to clean up the line art. We're going to clean up the everything really. So this is just literally blocking in color right now. It's not supposed to be perfect. We're gonna change a lot of this as we go, but this is just to block in the general gist of what we're trying to get down on page. But this is looking pretty good. I'm liking it so far. What were we discussing? Yeah, mental links. And because they're similar to each other, the link cognitively is that there is an association made between that as an erogenous zone, and then it's linked permanently to sort of sexual contact. I think the suggestion in that, I haven't done the research on this, so I don't know if that is how true that is for all people, because I don't think it's true necessarily for all people, but if it is true for at least some of them, that does explain where it comes from, or where some aspect of it comes from. So that's one thing. Just gonna clean this up ever so slightly. Yeah, so that kind of does explain some aspect of where that comes from as a thing. Those are different colours, okay. Cool. Is this darker? It is. Oh, that's on the wrong layer though. Fake. Let's try again. There we go. What I think I might do here. Back. Turn the hardness down. Try that again. There we go. Make this brush a little bigger. Turn the opacity down slightly. There we go. That's it. That's roughing it in a little better. I've been getting so many fucking spam bullshits recently. I swear someone has put my phone number online. Don't need that, don't need that. That's nothing cool. Nothing important. Yeah, I've been getting so much spam bullshit. My phone number must have gotten out somewhere somehow. Because it doesn't seem like this is normal for like this much spam. It's like multiple text messages, actual text messages, not like emails, not like fucking. Anyway, but yeah, like multiple of those per day, which is frustrating as all hell. Because if it was just like an email, I could kind of ignore it. Because I could just be like, oh, it's just spam shit, whatever. But when it's a text message, you're kind of ingrained in like, oh, spam doesn't come from text messages, so it must be something important. And, you know, that might be why they've changed tactics a little, but it's fucking frustrating. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Pretty gooder. That's the same one, so it's this. Darker again. I do like this playlist. There are some good songs in here. It's a little ridiculous, but I enjoy it immensely. But yeah, the phone thing's annoying. But talking about the fetish link thing, I can understand from a conceptual basis that scientific thing, but I don't know that necessarily to be true, and so I'll probably have to do some research on it. And I don't know for how much that is actually the case. Because it's all well and good to say, well, that's sort of the theoretical underpinning of it. But unless that is significantly widespread amongst people, there's sort of not much you can say about that. You can't, if it's not widespread, if it's not most of the people that have that fetish, then the sort of the basis for that theory kind of falls down a little. Because while it is the case for some people, if it's not a majority, if it's not most of the people, then there's a significant amount of people for whom would never have encountered that or encountered someone like that, so they wouldn't have picked it up from that. So there must be some other either cultural aspect to it, or there must be some other like biocognitive
evolutionary construct that we have not yet considered for why the feats do the feat thing. And my fascination comes from having interacted with people who have foot fetishes, but I no longer interact with these people as much as I once had. More just because I sort of don't see them as much anymore. And we don't have a relationship that would allow for me to spend the time being like, hey, so why? And it's definitely also a curiosity thing. It's not imperative that I find this out, but I would very much like to know. I have this weird thing of like needing to know stuff. I don't know why. Just the way my brain works. Just fascinated by how stuff works. How things came to be, why they're the case, why people think and act the way they do. So I'm so interested in religion. I am a religion teacher. I study various faiths and their impact on people, community, cultures. Their impact on the broader world, their impact on humanity as a whole, all of these sorts of concepts are really interesting to me. And I think this is kind of an extension of that line of thinking. Not necessarily of like, it's a religious thing, but like, in terms of, this is an almost cultural phenomena, because, you know, foot fetish as an idea is cross-cultural. It exists throughout humanity in lots of different places. Seemingly more common now, but not necessarily. And potentially appearing with no clear response to something else. It's not like it's a stimuli thing. It's not like we were flooded with images of feet and therefore we're now interested in feet. It seems to have sort of no clear origin point, and it potentially says not a lot about humanity, but at least a bit about, you know, how humans work as creatures. Because if it is a cognitive psychosocial thing, if it is something that our brains develop sometimes, if it's just that like there is an erogenous zone that gets cross-wired, I'm doing air quotes because that's how it was explained to me. And I'm not sure that that's the actual way that it is, but I'm giving the person the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're talking about. What am I saying? That if that's the case, then that says a lot about humanity and our like how our brains develop, how we interact with the world is mediated by these things in our head that we don't necessarily have a lot of control over. And it does kind of change your outlook on the world a little, or at least I feel it should. Because, like, if someone can have a foot fetish because of the way their brain works, then, you know, things of, like, and this is not to excuse, no, I'm going to pick a different concept, because I think you should not draw the comparison I was about to draw. Alcohol addiction. Things like predisposition towards certain mental illnesses or things like that. Or like cognitive behaviors, people acting in certain ways, acting out in certain ways, being criminal in some capacity, etc., etc., etc. The fact that these are potentially things that we could explain away in society, that we could potentially say, well, actually, this is based on the fact that this person has this DNA chain, so they're more predisposed to violent actions, or they're more predisposed to X, Y, or Z, religious thinking, or, you know, magical thinking, or cultish thinking in terms of conspiracy theories, or the like. And if that's the case, can we be as hard on them as we otherwise would? Because clearly their brains work that way. It's not like they can help that. And that gets into some difficult territory for some people. Because it also potentially creates some difficult queries around, you know, what responsibility we extend or hold on people. Because there are a lot of people at the moment, and this is not to criticize them necessarily. I think there is some criticism you could draw, but I think the sort of idea I'm having here is that that where the line is drawn is important. Like, how much do you forgive someone their trespass? If their trespass is based on something that happened to them, or some aspect of themselves that, you know, they don't necessarily have control over, especially if that trespass has caused harm to someone else. I'm trying to think of a good example that doesn't potentially cause some issue with people in the chat. But like a pretty common one is, you know, someone who's in a very poor socio-economic area. Their education was limited, so they end up delving into a little bit of crime. That little bit of crime then puts them in a situation where they're more likely to interact with police or violent people or gangs or whatever, and so they then are more predisposed to committing more crime in future. This is just any person who is like that. man, woman, child, any race. And this gets compoundedly worse. We know this gets compoundedly worse if they have had a traumatic background. They're more likely to have a traumatic background if their parents had a traumatic background. People who are from low socioeconomic areas are more likely to have traumatic backgrounds and have parents who have had traumatic backgrounds. It's this idea of intergenerational trauma. That trauma is a cycle that continues on. Generalizations not applicable to all things, so don't take that for rote. But that's a concept that exists. That is then used to explain why people in those situations should have more lenient sentences given to them, because while they are prior offenders or whatever, however you want to label them, they have been given a rough go of things. They've given the short end of the stick, and their behavior arguably can be directly correlated to where they've come from, how they've been raised. So saying that it's all their fault or even mostly their fault is ignoring the nuance of the situation. That is a fair point, reasonable argument. So then the argument then becomes, well, we sort of are more lenient on these people, we forgive these people a little bit more, and we move towards rehabilitation. I think rehabilitation is always the better option anyway. However, this idea of, well, it's not entirely their fault, they can't help it because X. Another line you can draw is people with mental illnesses. They have a mental illness, so you need to be more careful with them, you need to give them a little bit more space and be a little bit more lenient with them. They can't help that they did X. But they still did X, and X is still harmful, and it still caused issue and damage to people or property or to whatever the case may be. So how much responsibility do we place on these people? As we're learning more and more about the mind, and we're learning more and more about how, upbringing shapes things, but also just how your brain is wired shapes things. We're starting to see some correlations in how your brain develops, and when your brain develops, and the way in which it develops. Some of that is nature, some of that is nurture. But that can be a pretty good marker and tell for what you're going to be like in future. And linking this back to the sort of the fetishes idea that you be predisposed to certain ways of thinking and acting, that you'll be responding to certain stimuli in certain ways. So do we then forgive you for doing those things, for responding to those stimuli? If not, why not? Because you can't help it. Your brain was wired that way. Your brain was made to do that very thing. If we do, and it causes harm to someone else, then is that person not responsible for the harm? And how much do we negate that responsibility? Because that comes up, an amount, not an excessive amount, but definitely an amount. We got very far away from our original topic. This happens on my rant streams. Welcome, if you are listening to my amblings. We are drawing sexy mushrooms, by the way, if you hadn't already noticed. And we are discussing just fucking everything. From we were discussing D&D and
game theories and game development theories and roleplay and story theory to then touching on some, well, technically BDSM topics, because we were discussing appropriate aspects of like consent and how to approach situations with informed consent and ensuring everybody's on the same page, bridging expectations, and then developing protective, supportive, and consensual conversation within settings and scenarios. Then we moved on to... where did we get to after that? We kind of went all over the place, I'll be honest. Hey, Fire Chaos? You'll have to tell me if I said that one correctly, because I honestly don't know. What would you... Fire? Do you prefer fire? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. I've done a stupid. So... whoop. Nope. More. Alright. Fire like chaos. Cool, I like it. I am a fan. Let's get rid of this. Just a little, and then go back to our color. Our color layer. Numerous order. All right. Give him the spiel. All right. Yeah. Let's do this properly then. I'll get my sexy microphone out. Let me know if I'm too loud for you. Do you like numbers? Do you like gambling? Do you like mathematics and games? Well, have we got the cult for you? Join the cult of RNGesus and the Numerous Order today. All you need is a D20 dice to get started, or you can ask me to roll a dice for you. You're looking for a natural 20 on the dice, and if you do so, you progress onto the Trials of the Numerous Order, a series of trials dealing with gambling, money, random number generation, storytelling, kindness, and helping others. If you would like to join, please do let us know in the chat. Put my little microphone back. So, as they came in with you, my lovely cog, I'm assuming they're one of your friends. Fire like chaos. What would you prefer? Fire, chaos, like? Any combination of these? Could call you fire like. Be a little weird, but you know. This is looking pretty good. Fire is fine. Cool. I like it. I like it. They're your friend too. Oh! Interesting. It's a person that I kind of know, do know. I mean, if this is the first they're hearing of the Numerous Order, then they haven't been around a whole lot. Alright, we've got the rough colours in. May have met last night.
Either on Sea of Thieves last night while we were sailing the seas, doing the piratey thing. Or who else? Who else did we encounter? I think that's it. I don't think there was any new people necessarily, other than that. I'm going to leave these here just for now. We're going to play around with our tone. I'm going to chuck down Drop Shadow just briefly. Nothing too intense. Just to says. Well, welcome, Fire, as this is your first time here. I'm going to give you the spiel. My name is New World Artist. Hey! As you can see, I am an artist. You can call me Captain, you can call me Artist, you can call me the New World. Any of those is fine. Call me Chris if you really want, given that that's my name. I am an artist, I'm an art teacher and a religion teacher. I'm also a storyteller and a game player, designer, etc., etc. I do a lot of random things. We are a variety stream here, so we do a lot of different sort of things on this stream. Wednesdays is art, Thursdays is survival sandbox, usually like a Minecraft or a Valheim, but it changes occasionally. We also do Pokemon Tuesdays with Cognitive Bard. We also do some other random things on occasion. We have our lovely Discord where we do Discord drinks and show off art and show off memes, the memes, and all that kind of fun stuff. If you're looking to see anything in particular, please do let us know. We have a suggestion box down below in the doobie-doo. Or you can just let us know in chat, or PM us, or let us know on the Discord. We're willing to play new games if you want to see them. We have a list of things that we're going to get around to doing eventually, but we're slow because we have adult lives which get in the way of fucking everything. It is an 18 plus stream. I swear a lot. We talk about very inappropriate content and subjects. I am not the most... what's the word I'm looking for? Decent? I get? No, that's not the right word. I don't know. The word will come to me. I'm not great with words, just so you know. I'm dyslexic, so words are not necessarily my friends. But yeah, I talk about inappropriate things, and I'm fairly irreverent about a lot of stuff. If that is an issue at any point in time in a particular conversation, you can either tell me to shut up, which is usually fine unless I have a particular thing that I want to say, and I'll let you know that. Or alternatively, you are welcome to disagree with me at any point in time. I am not the authority on anything. I am an authority on quite a few things, but I'm not the authority. So you are welcome to disagree with me. You are welcome to argue with me about anything. Yeah. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on our wonderful adventures. We are questing. We are continuing to quest. 18 plus. I'm shocked. Oh my gosh. What with this homoerotic scene going on in front of us. We are continuing to quest. We are continuing to fight on. I have killed our dragon. We have got 9 more to go. So, continuing on with that. And if you wish, now that you have joined the questing army, you've followed along, you may be called upon at some point to continue the quest with us, if you so wish. This is questing that happens online, in person, all around the world. So, yeah, if that's something you're interested in, please do let us know.
At the moment, we're just doing some art stuff. We're making prints at the moment. So the idea is these will be Valentine's Day prints. And I think they're turning out pretty well. I'm going to show off the other ones in a second, so I'll show you the other things that we've done. But for now, this is what we've done this stream, working on this one. So we took it from being just an idea to being this fairly fleshed out, fairly fleshed out image. Just putting this drop shadow in, and then I will show you where we're at. All right, so this is the lovely guy that we worked on. This was the original plan. This was the image to begin with, and then this is where we're at now. The other ones we did previously, we did this one last session. I'm going to just take down the veil a little so you can see a little bit more of the detail on it. But that's the bridal veil stinkhorn. Then we've got a fly. What is the word I'm looking for? Animata muscaria mushroom. Fly something mushroom. It's the magic mushroom essentially. Is what this is. Then we've got a morel, and then we've got a red cap. This lovely red cap here. So those are what we're working on at the moment. This is a little lovely white button mushroom, and then we've got a yellow cap, saffron cap. They're the person we met on Sea of Thieves last night, the nervous pirate we harpooned. Very good. Yes, wonderful. Thank you for coming along. Thank you for joining. Hopefully we get to play some more Sea of Thieves together soon, because that's always fun. We like that. Yeah, feel free to sound off in the chat if you're keen on chatting. What you do, what you're up to. Do you like anything other than Sea of Thieves? I'm not going to ask you where you live, because that would be weird. But if you'd like to share. You're both slooping right now. Oh, well, then clearly you can't do a whole lot of chatting, because you're busy. So I'll just chat at you. I'm glad you guys are having fun. Yeah, my renowned needs a little bit of a... Yeah, all good. My renown needs a little bit of a boost, but I don't play nearly often enough for that to actually be the case. As in, for me to sort of ever really get significantly higher with it. So, I don't know exactly how we're gonna manage that one, but we'll figure something out. But what time is it now? It's almost 11 o'clock, so we're probably going to do a little bit more on this, and then we might raid into someone. Either the shrimp stream, because why wouldn't we? Or Barrow's streaming, that's pretty good. Mouse streaming, Bearded Squire is streaming. We've got a few good art options here for people we can raid into, and we will probably do that, but not just yet. We're still kicking on. Keep on keeping on. Alright, so we're going to go in and clean up our lines now. Make this a little bit prettier, I think. There's some things that we need to fix up in here. Basically all of this top. Things that I've been working on recently. I have been working on a little campaign starter, and then quite a lot of other campaign options, because I'm running another in-person, finally, D&D game. It has been too long since my last one. Been jonesing for a bit of D&D. When we play D&D, me and Cognitive Bard and a few of my other friends online, which is great. It's lots of good fun. But playing in different is playing in different. Playing in person is a little different. It runs a little different. I enjoy DMing. I like the storytelling aspect of it. And I always find that like the online thing is a little bit harder to wiggle. If you know what I mean. We need to do the Flight of Kite. We absolutely need to do the Flight of Kite. We need to hurry up and get that rocking and rolling. And I do have the various heist games to organize. I am doing those as well, yes. The heist games are on my list of things. I've done the bulk of the organization for the first one, well, technically the first two. I just need to finish drawing up the maps. I'm going to zoom in here so I can get a little bit more control on this. We might bring it down to 3. Clean up some of these edges. Yeah, I've got the bulk of the planning for it done. I just haven't drawn the maps in yet. I've got the small scale maps. I just don't have the big maps done. I draw a lot of my maps by hand. Because I can, for one. And I like the control that it gives you to have everything sort of very specifically related to what it is you're trying, like the theme you're trying to put across. I like that as an aspect of the gameplay, that the map will reflect the world in some capacity, or reflect the sort of the theme of what's happening. That always comes across to me quite well as something that I want in my games. So I've been doing a bit of that, which is good. I've drawn the drafts out. I just need to actually get around to doing the larger scale ones, the more detailed maps, and then uploading them to the Roll20. Because we are playing mostly on Roll20 at the moment due to the pandemic. Nope, pandemic. Sorry. I do not believe in the conspiracy theory thing. It's just we have had a lot of people going on about the bullshit recently, and it's got stuck in my head. I am very not a crazy conspiracy theory nut. My partner is a registered nurse, and She would be very unhappy with me if I was suddenly a conspiracy theorist. And I wouldn't blame her, honestly. Because that's kind of fucking ridiculous. Yeah, if any... This is not something I should say in the chat, but hey, if anybody's an anti-vaxxer in the chat, or, you know, has some questions or queries about the pandemic and wants to talk with someone who kind of knows what they're talking about, yeah, please... I don't know about please respond in the chat, but, like, yeah, make yourself known, I guess. Oofed, as the kids would say. Oh, I'm a fool. But yeah, if you have some questions or queries or some issues that you wanna work through, I'm happy to work through them with you. I will try my hardest not to just berate you and call you an idiot, even if I maybe think that is the case. But I can understand that, like, these things are confusing, and there is a lot of misinformation out there. If you specifically actually want to get an explanation and to learn about some of these things, please do let me know. That is not to say that this is a safe haven for people who believe those sorts of things at all, but I am not of the mindset of broad censorship. I think generally speaking, unless you're saying something that's intentionally harmful, or unless you're unwilling to listen to, you know, another person's side of the debate, or an expert. If you're going to talk over the expert opinion, and that's not to say someone who purports himself to be an expert, but someone who has literally done the research on it. I think at that point you sort of forfeited your right to the debate. But yeah, if someone in the chat wants to, you know, talk about that, let me know. If you're listening on the VOD or whatever, you can PM me and we can organize something to go over the stuff. If someone wants to take this opportunity and try and use it as a way to preach to other people, it's not going to go well. Just pre-warning you. I know most of the things that people are going to say in this because I've heard a lot of it already, and I've listened to the content, and I know why it's wrong. I understand why it is compelling or appealing as a concept, but yeah, most conspiracy theories, whilst having some basis of fact, are fairly wrong about most things. But hey, that's, you know, if you want to have the discussion, we'll have the discussion. Back to D&D stuff. Yeah, I would. I'm keen to get all that stuff done. I'm just so busy lately. It's fucking ridiculous how I can do nothing and be fucking busy all the time. I don't really understand what I'm doing to make myself so busy, but apparently I'm doing some. So there's that. Zoom that one. There we go. Yeah, I've got a game coming up shortly in the real worlds, and so I've been making a map for that which I can show off to you guys actually. So this is it here. Actually, I know what I'll do. This is why I have an art thing. Here you go. So that's the map. It's a nice big A3 sheet. I'm not done yet. But that's it. How it's working there. We are working off this small map, which has all of our towns and cities in it. But this is the one I'm using for the actual. This is like the DM's copy, and then this one is the like the player's copy that they'll get to, you know, mark on and draw on and stuff. I think I'm going to make multiple copies of this because I want to play around with coloring it and using some watercolors and stuff to make it all prettified and shit. And then I have my huge stack of a billion like battle maps, I guess is the way to talk about them. But I've got like city maps and things. I sort of put too much effort into it, which I think is a good thing. I would want my DM to put in that much effort. I wouldn't expect them to, but I would want them to put in at least something akin to that much effort into the story. And so I then have to be willing to put in that much effort myself, and so I do. Which I think is a relatively good way of approaching these things. If you are willing to put in that much effort, then you can expect that much effort back. That's generally my argument for things like oral sex or fetishes. If you're expecting something from someone, you better be willing to give back. Otherwise, it can't be an expectation. It has to be has to sort of just be a nice thing that they might do for you. Also, consent is super important. So, hey, they're allowed to say no or whatever. or whatever, he says. There's some fingies. Just working on cleaning this up a little more. We'll have to go in and trim our color layout as well. So my mum says that me and my brother have ADD, or specifically I have ADD and he has ADHD. I never got tested. I don't think I ever got tested. I'm pretty sure that was not a thing. And because I already got tested for dyslexia, it seems like they would have picked up that I had ADD. Because no one ever fucking told me. But she's now insisting that that's the case. And the more I think about it, and the more I, have been streaming and stuff like that, I'm starting to think she might be right. And it might I think it's probably just like really low instance. Like, I have it's like fairly low impact for me, which is fucking lucky because I know some people with ADD who really struggle with life, and I'm not sure that I could cope living like that. But I'm fatty, I do hyperfixate, my brain goes fucking all over the place whenever I'm talking, especially if I'm left alone to talk. You've got ASD. What is ASD? Disorder. Autism spectrum disorder. Cool. Yeah, we have a lot of people in the group with autism spectrum disorder. Yeah, there's a lot of autistic people in our group. Reasonable. That is also a struggle. But I've found that, and this may be just the people that I've talked to. So this may not be a universal thing. In fact, I'm almost willing to bet it is not. But from what I've heard, that people with like autism spectrum disorders, generally speaking, have an easier time of things as long as they're not being forced to approach things in a neurotypical sort of way. As long as they're not expected to act or think in a way that is neurotypical, they tend to do fairly well, just sort of generally speaking, in their life. Whereas people with ADD, and this is not all, but sort of a generalization of what I have heard and experienced, because I know a couple of people with ADD and ADHD, that they really struggle with just general life stuff, even if they don't approach it in a neurotypical way, because the way their brain functions stops them from doing really simple things that they would otherwise still want to do, and still try to engage with in any sort of capacity, generally speaking. So like a good example would be like washing the dishes. An autistic person might have their specific way of going about washing dishes, and it may not make sense to a neurotypical person, but the dishes still get done, and they still get done, you know, on a fairly regular basis, or you know, as needed, kind of thing. Whereas for someone with ADD or ADHD, the dishes often just don't get done. Hey, Infinity Guy, how you going? How's it doing, Infinity? And so that can sort of cause some problems there of, like, you know, basic hygiene things and basic life things can be a little bit more difficult in that scenario. This is not to sort of say one person has it harder than another, but just sort of the life experiences are slightly different. Again, which sort of might be more pointing in the direction that I have ADD, because that's a rant I just went on. What am I doing, Infinity Guy? I am currently drawing sexy mushrooms. We have previously done a few other sexy mushrooms. So we've got this lovely Bridal Veil Stinkhorn. We've got this Amanita Muscaria. We've got this Morel. We've got this lovely Redcap. And now we're doing this lovely button mushroom with a saffron cap. Kinda suffs. Really cool. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you like it. So that's what we're working on at the moment. These are going to be Valentine's Day prints once they're finished up. So you know, that's exciting. I think we need to go in one more. But how you been? What you been up to? Infinity? I have just been explaining that that I think I might be might have ADD, attention deficit disorder. Which I think realistically would probably surprise no one if we really thought about it. And then before that, we were just discussing D&D things, which is good and fun. We like D&D. For those who missed the start of the stream, which I think is probably everybody who's watching right now, Critical Role has just released, or is just about to release, in 2 days' time, the Legends of Vox Machina. Which is their animated series of their first campaign. For those who don't know, Critical Role is a group of voice actors who play D&D on Twitch. They are awesome. If you haven't checked them out, you should go and do so. They play D&D every Thursday. And they're pretty frackin' awesome. Hey, there is my Instagram. Go and check it out if you would like to see more of my art. It is, some of it is up there. It's mostly traditional stuff on there. I will be putting some more digital stuff up soon, but I haven't been doing it in a long time, for a long while. It's pretty recent that I picked this back up. So that is why there is a lot less of it up there. But that's probably not a bad thing, because my digital art isn't nearly as good as my my traditional art, I don't think. That's not to say it's bad, I just don't think it's as good. I'm out of practice, so. But yeah, they're releasing this series, and it's based on the first season of their campaign, their first campaign. And having backed it because it was kickstarted a while ago, actually, 2 years almost. Jeez, it's been a while. Yeah, I kickstarted it a while ago, and part of the backer rewards for that was that you got to see a pre-screening of the first 2 episodes, and they were fucking awesome. The first one is a little slow because it has to introduce some things, but I really enjoyed that they did introduce and explain some things, like the characters and the setting a little. I was mildly worried, as per our discussion on yesterday's stream, that they were going to treat it as like a spin-off of the Twitch series, the Twitch streams, and so weren't going to explain enough about the characters and their motivation and things like that. And I was actually quite worried that they potentially were going to fuck it up by not explaining things well enough. But they did a really good job, I think. They could have. There's some things that they probably could have explained a little better, but first 2 episodes they probably explained as much as they possibly could without giving it all away, which is nice. My partner, who's never watched the first season, understood pretty much all of it. She had a couple of questions about, who played who and things like that, what class they were playing. But after I had explained it, they then went in and basically explained it. So, yeah, they did a pretty good job in my opinion. And I think it's worth checking out. It's on Amazon Prime, or it will be in 2 days. The first 3 episodes, and then I believe they're releasing them 3 at a time every week. So if you want to check that out, I would advise you do so. If you don't already have Amazon Prime, ask around, see if you can find someone who's got an Amazon Prime, so you can steal theirs. Or alternatively, there are other ways of finding the content online. I would obviously never advocate for piracy, because waggle finger. But the series got kickstarted, so they have kind of all already been paid by us, the viewers. They got $10 million to make the series. Now there is also some pay structure in there for royalties and things, but the majority of it basically at this point goes to Amazon, and I'm not a huge fan of Amazon, so if you decide to be less than scrupulous, that is your decision, and I cannot sway you one way or the other. Yes, I am aware that Twitch is owned by Amazon, mildly to my chagrin, but I can't help it. Man's gotta eat. Man's gotta eat. Yeah, it's a good series. Go and check it out. If you have never seen Critical Role, go and check them out as well. I would suggest for anybody who has never encountered it before, and especially someone who's never encountered D&D before, I would start at the second season, the second campaign, not the first one, because the first one is a little bit more difficult to get off the ground. They are just starting with even the idea of playing the game. Not that they haven't never played before, but playing it on stream and how that works, and sort of mediating some of those decisions, and some of the player interactions are a little muddy and murky to begin with, that kind of stuff. So I would suggest, if you haven't got the experience of having watched some of their stuff before, go and check them out. Maybe start in the second season, with the Mighty Nine, because they've got a little bit more figured out by that point. Additionally, you might also want to be aware that every episode is about 4 hours long. And in being 4 hours long, it takes an amount of concentration to watch it. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. But you might have to watch it in chunks. I listen to it as a podcast. I download it on Spotify and listen to it. It's in a few different podcastable places, so if you have a preferred podcasting app, it's probably there. Alternatively, they are on YouTube. They are on Twitch. You can go and check them out there. It is a live show. There is they are there actually playing, and you can sit and watch as well the visuals. But you can also just listen if you want. That's sort of how I do it, because that's what I prefer. I prefer being able to do other things while I also listen, which is handy. Anything else you need to know? Oh yeah, each campaign is about 100 episodes long, so it's 400 plus hours of content. That's what you're getting yourself in for if you would like to join in watching. That sounds like a big investment, and it is. You will invest a fair chunk of your life attempting to watch a group of idiots play D&D. But they're all voice actors, they're professional voice actors, they're very good at it. They are not professional D&D players. They are not as good at it, but they do pretty well, and they are very good at the storytelling thing. And anybody in the Critical Role community would tell you that they're lovely people and very worth, catching up with. That's my little spiel there. Done. I'm not sponsored by them. Just a fan. Should be sponsored by them then. That would be a dream. This needs to move over ever so slight. There we go. That's a little better. Clear about all of this and redo it. We've got quite a few people just sitting and lurking. Feel free to join in the chat if you so wish. Don't feel you have to. We're just gonna sit here and draw and chat. I will ramble away as I always do, and if no one wants specifically to talk. But if you've got anything in particular that you would like to talk about, please do let me know. I'm happy to indulge topics. We regularly end up in ridiculous arguments on this channel, myself and Cognitive Bard. I'm not sure that's a good thing necessarily, but it's definitely something that happens. So if you've got something that you would like to query, do let me know.
Otherwise, you're just going to have to listen to me ramble on for however long. 'Cause I'm gonna. What I'm good at. Nobody? Alright. More ranting from me then. What can we rant about? This is a good topic, I guess. So I'm about to have to go back into teaching. I don't particularly enjoy teaching. I enjoy the act of teaching. I enjoy teaching people things, and I'm fascinated by the topic areas that I do teach. I'm fascinated by art. I'm fascinated by religion. They are amazing, very interesting topics. I'm also sort of mildly interested by a lot of the other topics that I end up having to teach. And this is where being a teacher is a weird sort of thing, especially where I teach, because I teach basically all of the subjects. So I don't just teach the subject areas I'm trained in, which is art and religion. I also teach, English, science, the various sciences, chemistry, biology, physics, earth sciences, etc. I also teach geography and literature studies and all sorts of things like that. So we do a little bit of everything. I don't do them all the time, and I don't have consistent classes for them. But I do, have to teach them, and I do have to know enough about them to be able to teach them. So that is a thing that I have done. I've taught myself enough about these subjects that I could teach a reasonable amount of them to a class and high school level class, so 13-year-olds to 18-year-olds. And that's all fine and dandy. I'm not as much a fan of doing things that aren't in my subject area, but that's the job. So I sort of begrudgingly will be like, sure. What I really don't like is all of the essentially babysitting behavior management bullshit that I have to put up with. And for people who are new to the channel, some of it is just managing stupid behaviors of children acting like children. Throwing things in the classroom, swearing, making stupid comments, blah 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 blah. That's all the mundane stuff. That's fine. The weird sexual jokes, sexual assaults, violent incidences, stabbings, the repeated threats against me and my family by both students and parents, all of that kind of stuff, not as much fun. And unfortunately is common enough that I can say that I have to deal with it every year on a fairly consistent basis. It's not happening every single week, but like, there'd be a fight, a serious fight every single week. There'd be a threatening and a stabbing most weeks. I don't live in the best area, but that's a thing that happens. I don't want to have to deal with that bullshit. That's not why I became a teacher. I sort of actually became a teacher as a backup to make money, because art doesn't make money. And I sort of wanted to get myself off the ground in a job that would still at least allow me to make art and to be within the topic of art, generally speaking. And so I thought teaching would be an alright fallback, and then it became my main source of income because, it does actually pay okay. Not amazingly, especially not for what it is, not for the amount of effort you put into it. But, it's a decent living. Especially for, like, in comparison to, like, retail work, for example. Retail work is soul-destroying, kind of in the same way that teaching is, but you make significantly more money teaching than you would in retail. So I don't know why anybody who could teach would do retail, other than you just couldn't handle it anymore, as in, like, not a failing of the person, not as in that person couldn't handle teaching, but as in they couldn't maintain teaching anymore because it would literally kill them, or they'd literally be killed doing it. Given that I have been stabbed before as a teacher, and I've also been threatened to be stabbed and tried to be stabbed, like an attempted stabbing, a few times. I think we're on 4 now. 4 attempts, 1 successful. That's way too many. And so that's a legitimate reason to leave, because it's not safe. That's a hostile environment. You shouldn't have to work in that. But that's the job at the moment. And obviously, different schools in different areas are different, and not all schools are like that. But they seem to be trending more towards it. For whatever reason, the extremes in the community are becoming more extreme. Yes, there were always crazy violent people even back in the day, and we just didn't hear from or recognize that they were as much of an issue as they were. Often they didn't end up going to school because they got kicked out of the first school, and then that was it. Now there is mandates that force them to come back, so they're in school for longer, more likely that they'll be there and be dangerous. Makes sense. But then, on top of that, it seems like these extremes and the people in them are getting worse. And then also, because of that, the people in the middle, who normally weren't as bad, are now sort of seeing it as free reign to be worse. There's a significant loss of the respect given, or the deferation to authority that was given in the past. I don't think you should always defer to authority, but there are certain situations in which that might not be a bad idea. And education is one of them. You probably shouldn't be fighting your teacher constantly. Yeah, your teacher should be decent, and they shouldn't be an awful person, but, but like that's not a reason to try and fucking stab. Anyway, so I've got to go back to teaching. All of that is long context to basically say I don't like teaching, but it is my career path at the moment until I end up becoming a tattoo artist. That is my ultimate goal. That's where I'm heading. The Twitch thing is kind of a little bit of stepping stone. It gives me an opportunity to create more art. It gives me an opportunity to spread my art name out there. Exposure and all that, and then also provides me with an outlet for doing things. But all of this is to say that there's sort of two approaches to life you can have. And this is where the advice comes in, which is what I had originally started this conversation with. If the thing you really love doing is not something that you can make money off, and there's not a way for you to think of a way to make money off it, because you don't have to make money off the thing you love. A lot of people say don't, because it then strips it of its love, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think you can love something and still do it for a career. But if there's not a way for you to do it as a career, if that's too difficult of a thing to get into, I still think you should try anyway. But if you can't, or if it's just something that does not make money, in sort of the realest sense of the word, then you sort of have the two options. Either you push to try and find a way to make money from it. And Twitch is a pretty nice example of it. There are lots of people who are turning playing games, being a slightly weird theater-esque character, as in like someone who's interested in the theater, of turning that into an income source, a way to make money. Playing games or making art or whatever, and doing that with people that you enjoy being around. That's pretty awesome. The second option is you find a job that you can maintain and survive in long enough to have the money to be able to do the thing you enjoy. But that second one requires you to not work so hard or work in a way that destroys the love and the ability to do the thing you enjoy. And that's where the tricky part comes in. Especially for me, because I find when I'm teaching, I will often get very tired after shifts because it's so emotionally exhausting. And I'll find myself not wanting to draw afterwards, not wanting to stream afterwards, because it's so brain destroying and soul destroying to have to deal with all these fucking kids. And so, that being the case, I need to start now considering whether or not I want to continue teaching, whether or not I want to continue whilst I don't have an apprenticeship, or I don't have a tattoo apprenticeship, making money off something that I really don't enjoy. Just because it's convenient and it's easy. And if I was smart and listened to my own advice, I would probably say no and try and find something else to do. But things that I would want to do at the moment are not things that A, would make me money or enough money, and B, sort of don't help me in moving towards the thing that I ultimately want to do, which is being a tattoo artist, making tattoos. So that's the predicament I'm in. And the advice to other people, which I clearly have not listened to, is to move towards the thing you love whilst managing and maintaining your mental health. Because that's super important. Looking after yourself is super important. Looking after your mental health is super important. Without it, you're just going to struggle. Without it, you can't sort of function and progress in the world. You are not to anybody else's benefit if you can't look after yourself. That's not to say without support, because obviously, asking for support is recognizing when you need help or where you have a weakness, and it is a strength to seek that support. That is absolutely a good thing, and you should seek to do that. 'Cause there are lots of people who don't, and that's silly, myself included. This is a self call out, as much as it is calling anybody else out. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to manage and maintain. So, if that's a thing you need to think about, know that other people are also struggling with it. Especially myself. I would consider myself pretty well put together. Most of my friends and family would say that I am very well put together. I've got a wife, I've got a beautiful fluffy daughter, our dog, which is all the kids we're gonna have, really. I have a career and then also a career path. So I have teaching as something that I can do, which makes me money, and then I also have tattooing, which is a sort of like a career that I guess I have a profession and a career. Teaching being my profession, art and tattoo artistry being my career, the thing that I want to get into. And we have a house. We own a fucking house. I had no idea I would ever own a house. It's insane that I own a house. I have no idea how it happened. It's pure luck. But that's a thing I did. Bought a fucking house. So, most people will be like, well, you got your shit together. Well, I don't. My mental health, whilst relatively okay, has its moments. And I'm in a career that I really don't like. Profession. I'm in a profession that I really don't like. And that is causing conflict in my own head. And I'm gonna own another house soonish. That in itself is causing conflicts for me in my own mind. Of there is another house and that's going to cost more money, which is a difficult thing to sort of manage and maintain in and of yourself, especially if you're considering leaving a profession which is providing all of your income. I mean, ideally, no, not ideally, but in a wonderful world, in a fantasy land, I would be paid a lot more for streaming. People would buy my art, and I would win the lotto. And then I'd never have to worry about money ever again, and I could just make art and be happy. That's never gonna fucking happen. So, the other alternative is The other alternative is I move towards the thing I love, which is art and tattoo artistry. And whilst doing so, I manage and maintain the teaching thing long enough that I can survive in it and I can make the money needed to get us where we need to be. Because Lizzie Bell is our breadwinner. She is the one who makes our money. And I just provide the sort of the top up, the extra bits of income, the extra bits of ticks on the paper to allow us to get mortgages and things. My income is never going to provide us with all the money for bills, but it does assist. If I can continue to do that and work my way towards becoming a tattoo artist, work my way towards becoming a consistently paid artist, that's the ideal goal. But that's a one-day thing, and I would love to be able to get there. I would also love everybody else to be able to get there, and if that's something you're working towards right now, that's awesome. You're an awesome person. If that's not, don't stress about it too much, but consider it. Consider what you can do to work towards the thing you love. How do you get from where you are now to where you want to be? And if you can't, if it's not a thing you can envision, then how do you get to where you need to be financially, socially, mentally, whilst still maintaining the passion for the thing you love? Because that's equally important. Not losing the passion just because you can't live off it, just because you can't make money off it, is still important. And this might sound a little preachy, but I have been around the place. I've done a fair amount of things. I've done a lot of things that I didn't want to do because it was the right thing to do, or because it was gonna make me enough money to be able to do something else. And honestly, like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to... You don't want to struggle for the sake of struggling. But this is also assuming, in some capacity, that you have the ability to manage and maintain your finances a little bit more loosely. There are some people who, literally can't do any of that, and that's a lot more difficult. That requires a lot more thinking and a lot more consideration. You can still eventually get to that point, but it's just a little bit more difficult. And that's where you can't do it right now, so don't sweat it too much, but start thinking about it, and start thinking about what you could do in the meantime, what you could do to keep the passion going, what you could do to set yourself up so that down the line you can do the thing that allows you to, do the thing you love, or, gets you a step closer to doing your dream job or whatever it is. Because, there are a million different things you can do to take a step in the right direction. Becoming a tattoo artist for me, I have done a lot of things. I've made a lot of the steps already, but doing the Twitch thing was part of that. As much as this kind of seems like fun, and it is, and it is, playing around with friends, and that's great. It's also a step in getting me towards being a tattoo artist. It's practice for making art. It's practice using different tools and techniques and styles in art. It's the socialization. It's getting my brand out there. It's all these different things. And in the meantime, I'm also, looking online to do online courses. I'm looking online to do free things and
learning how to use tools and techniques that I have never encountered before, that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to encounter if the internet hadn't existed, because I would need an apprenticeship to start doing them. All these things are steps in the right direction. And they're things you can be doing right now too, if you want to. But, like I said before, I am not the authority on anything, so while I am experienced and while I am an authority on quite a few things, you are very welcome to disagree with me. You are very welcome to say, nah, that's fine. You're just some guy. That's fine. But yeah, the idea around that came up because I remembered that I have to start getting ready for school again. Because it's school holidays are almost over. The summer holidays. I think we go back next week or the week after. So it's coming up. I actually think it might be next week. There's some COVID things I need to look into. There's some online training things that I need to finish off, which I'm not looking forward to because they're dull as shit. But stuff I need to do, so I'll do them. The thing I find most offensive, it's not the most offensive thing, but one of the most offensive things about teaching, and it happens in a lot of other professions as well. So I will sort of pass that torch to anybody who also has to deal with these exact sort of things or very similar sorts of things. But having to pay fees to maintain a registration for something just so I can work. Not like, you know, it comes out of my income or whatever, but like before I can even begin to teach, before I can even step into a classroom, I have to be registered with 2 different institutions, and I have to pay for both of them. And then on top of that, I then also have to do a working with children's check. Reasonable that that's a thing I have to do, but also I have to pay for that working with children's check. I have to pay to have it maintained. So it's not like I do it and then it's done. I have to do it and continue doing it over and over and over again. And I have to pay each time. And then there's also like the various union fees and things like that. And all of this is then just to do a job that I don't even actually want to. It is so frustrating. What layer is that on? Ah, I didn't erase all of this. That's what it was. So the idea layer. There we go. Why not? Alright, it's almost 12. Let's have a look at this. Oh, that cleaned it up a lot. That's looking pretty good. I'm liking that. We got our buff boy down the bottom, and we got our chunky bear up top. Sexy. All right, save this for one. Nope, not export. Save as. In pictures. Mushroom lads. Mush lad. Mush lad. Mush lads. White cap. There we go. Saved. So we're now going to raid Shady Lady into someone. So let's have a look who is currently online doing wonderful things. It's probably gonna be Barra. Yeah, he's been streaming for an hour, so he started doing art things, which is awesome. Because he's a pretty cool dude. So we're gonna raid into James. Let me just clean up my desktop a little. Not that that matters for you guys, but just for me. And then we'll jump into the raid. The raid is going. So we're gonna. Anybody who is subscribed to me can use our little raid doobie-doo, which I'm just gonna copy out here. Feel free to copy and paste that. If not, if you're not keen on using that one, you can use your own. Just give James our love because he is a lovely human being. We are going to be back tomorrow with Sandbox Survival for Thursday. We're probably going to be doing some Valheim, but we'll see how we go. And then Sunday is the release of our D&D video. So feel free to jump around for that. It's actually gonna be on Cog's channel, Cognitive Bard. So you can find him if you're on my stream. You probably know about him already. So just go and see his stuff. But we'll be posting about it on the Discord and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you everybody who chilled in the chat. Everybody who lurked. I hope you enjoyed and had some fun, and we'll catch you next time. See you guys.